there, Squirrel Army. It's time to discuss Ojer Calcium Deepest Growth, and how good I think it is.
You can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing.
Alright, so 5 mana, 6/5 Trampler. Okay. Of course, we know that these flips into a land and we can flip it back with some conditions, etc. Blah, blah, blah. That's not really that important. It's nice, whatever, blah, blah, blah. When it deals combat damage to a player, we reveal that many cards from the top of our library, and we may put a creature card and or a land card from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom of our library in a random order. So, that seems quite good. The biggest thing that I think this thing needs, you know what I'm going to say, folks? It needs haste. You need to give this thing haste. It's very important that this thing, when you cast it, you have your lightning grooves, you have your swift foot boots, you have whatever you have your glass slipper or whatever you have, to give this thing haste when it comes in, because this is really good. And you want to get immediate value off of it. You don't want to just play this thing, hope it lives a turn. Yeah, sure, even if it dies, it doesn't really die, it's a land, but then you can flip it back, blah, blah, blah. But still, you don't ever want to be like, oh, well, just get it back at some point. You want to be like, cool, I got immediate value from what I did and got some things off of it, and then I moved on. And then maybe it died or whatever later on. Because again, people aren't really going to kill this thing. Maybe they'll kill it in combat, I don't know. But it's very unlikely. But even if it still deals combat damage, you still get that trigger, which is very important. So even if it deals 1 damage, you still get that trigger to get, something from your library. And you get a land, potentially. You can get a land and something, potentially. So that's pretty good to get both a land and a creature onto the field if you can get it. So yeah, actually Death Touch is always really good with trampling things as well. It's just trample and haste are the two of the bigger things that you want to give this thing. I am going to punch, and all of my damage is pretty much going to get through. And it's hitting you right now. You don't ever want your opponents to have more time to react to what you're doing than what, than what you can. You want to have as little time between, playing this thing. And especially, if you have Boots or Greaves in your hand, I don't know whether you play Boots or Greaves first or you play this thing first. It doesn't really matter, I guess. But yeah, just having them there when you're ready to do this thing is cool. Boots and Greaves, put on this thing, punch, do the thing. Yeah, that's really strong. I'm trying to think, I don't know whether you kind of want to be somewhat focused on landfall, because that's kind of almost always a trap, in my opinion, to fall into just being a landfall deck when something says put a land into play. Because it can put lands into play, it can also not put lands into play sometimes. If you're me, especially, Either I never get lands or all I get is lands. That's always the way. So, but anyway, it's just one of those things that it's funny how those things always work. But anyway, so yeah, but adding the creature into play, that does put into pushing this to being you're doing ETB based stuff. Or whatnot, that sort of style of stuff, because again, you probably don't want to rely on something that says when you cast something Beast Whisperer or Guardian Project, those sorts of things. Though again, it does perhaps be a trap to say that, because again, you still will cast things from your hand But obviously when this is your commander, you're trying to cheat these things from your library into play. So maybe you even want to sort of, yeah, like have ways to rig the top of your deck or whatnot and that sort of thing. Though there aren't very many ways that are not in blue to do that. So, it's tough as far as being a commander. Like, it's just a good value card, and I could see it going in any number of decks, particularly like landfall decks, as I sort of said, because they would want this. They could get their creature from, this thing triggering, like, I don't know, Avenger of Zendikar, and then get the land, and then put +1/+1 counters on all their plants, or whatever, get the trigger straight away effectively of the, landfall style stuff, which is really powerful. And again, you could just go down that route with this thing, but it's not really a landfall commander. Like, it's not like any of the two plus color Almanacs, except for the 5 color one, I guess. So, like, it doesn't pay you off. And there's always two schools of thought to these kinds of like landfall strategy commanders. You either want the payoff or you want the enabler in your command zone. And again, being limited to one color is kind of tough, though. Again, sometimes that breeds in that deck building challenge and that sort of thing with this sort of stuff. So, like, you can get kind of that sort of thing. And if you have, what's his name, Kamal of, I don't know which tree it is now, but whenever you get a permanent, you get a permanent of that cost from your hand onto the field. Like, you just get whatever, like 6-drop or whatever from your library, and then you just get a 6-drop from your hand, and then you get a land from your library and a land from your hand. Just like, especially like that'd be really good in like landfall decks. That'd just be utterly insane, just because you're just like, cool, here's 2 landfall creatures and here's 2 lands or whatever. Like, and I believe you could stack the triggers that way. You may put a creature card and or a land card from among them onto the battlefield. So, because I think this ability is still resolving, maybe not, but still, you still get to do 2 permanents from your hand like that. That is gross with that. So, there are a bunch of decks who would probably want that kind of effect that are outside of that, but I just can't really think of them. But it's just a decent value card, so it's not a tribal card, I don't think. So if you don't really care about tribal stuff, then maybe you kind of want it in your deck, because it's just a decent value card and can do a whole lot for you. Again, I would preface that by saying you damn well need haste with this thing. You, like most things that have a damage trigger or a combat trigger or whatever, especially that are above, 4 mana or whatever, you need to get them to have haste, because there are some that like what's the name, Adeline. I don't think she needs haste, because you don't really want to attack with her. You just want to attack with whatever you've got, like little piddly tokens to make more piddly tokens, and then buff them up whatever in the process somehow. But anyway, like there are very few things that don't do that you kind of just go, well, that doesn't matter unless it has haste already, which you just like stonks. Like, this has haste and it has attack trigger and or a combat damage trigger. Okay, sign me up. Okay, how do I get this thing through? Whatnot. So it immediately gives you that, like, okay, cool, right, cool. I'm gonna get value off of this immediately because it has haste. That is what I want. But yeah, like, there is stuff there that I could see. But yeah, you guys can let me know what you guys think. Is there something really, really silly that we could do with this? Where do you think it would fit and that sort of thing? Let me know down there in the comments below. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Hope you'll join me for more.